the public hearing for Nordic Delights Building for May 2nd at 5 o'clock. I need a motion for that.
So moved.
All in favor? And then I would like the same person, so it's easier for me to make a motion to send out the notice of public hearing to
So moved.
mortgagees.
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, so let's sign it, because we gotta get it to the post office before the truck leaves.
Before the first snow flies.
Oh, got it out. Did you hear me? Okay, set for number 6. Rachel and Tony did both the setting the date and the paper, sign the letter. We did two of them for the same people. Did it. Rachel and Tony. It was number 6. Number 6. It's all done.
Okay. It'd be done.
Okay, now we'll do some information for what's there you're going, so you don't have to miss any minutes, okay?
So that's coming from
Well, there you go. Okay, then we need warrants, motion for the warrants, because she's gotta do something for the
Motion to sign warrants.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? She's got something that has to go out in the mail today as well on this. Just 2? Yes. Okay. All right. Bring it back to what we're doing here.
Everybody excited about the snow?
Not as much as
Motion to accept the minutes is written.
So moved.
February 21st.
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
Second, all in favor? Okay, so that's done. So now we're gonna close the select board meeting, need a motion to adjourn the select board meeting, because we have to open up the assessors meeting.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna move to close the,
can we need a motion to
Select
close
board.
that?
and reopen the assess.
So we're gonna open the assessors meeting. Do we have to go on that?
Yes.
Okay, second and all in favor, just use Rachel and Tony, they're being very cooperative today. Okay, we're gonna open the assessors meeting. Oh, every day, excuse me. Hi.
Aye.
All right, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, let's see now, we're gonna sign supplemental.
Anyway, there's a couple of items there. Supplements
Okay.
that need to be signed. So, some kind of a technical clerical error that we need to fix.
Do we have this in our?
How many of them?
There's 2.
There's 2 pages for the same supplement.
Okay. All right, so.
Yeah.
Is there any, the supplements mean we're getting money, right?
Yeah, we're sending them tax bills.
Okay, so we have to follow with that too.
So you don't know anything about it,
Is this it?
and they are aware. There was a mix-up in the deed conveyances, and we got that straightened out.
All right, so we need to, I'll make a motion that we sign the supplemental tax warrant for, does it have a tax number?
1355.
1355. Second?
Second.
All in favor? And there's a supplemental certificate that goes with it, it's the
Yeah,
same
there's
thing.
certificate, warrant,
So there's
and-
both the warrant and the
And a
certificate.
list. And list this. You know what the list is, right?
No.
The assessor
Refresh
ticket.
our memory.
Okay, a list is provided, the list in here would be the next page at the end of the commitment book.
Uh-huh.
So when you do a commitment, you leave the extra pages blank, such that when you do supplements, those supplements then become embodied in the commitment book for that year as a list, S2 or S3. So if you have a list of 5 supplements, that would be like on the very first assessors meeting for that year, supplements, you would have a list S1. And S board, if you had some more, you'd have the second list S2. And they actually become bodies in that year's amendment, so they were,
And let's jump to, instead of doing the deferred taxes first, let's go to the county warrant. Sign assessor's return for the county warrant.
yes, you need to sign that.
And it's gone up?
Went up, in the store,
2.9%.
3.9%, went up many thousands of dollars.
Last year it was 292,000 and some change. This year it's
Right.
300,999.
Yeah, and that increase was necessitated, the county's going to hire how many more deputies?
They were approved for one additional,
One additional deputy.
plus with all their
Cost.
union contracts, the money from their salaries and their the repairs that are needed at the county buildings, which are historic.
Yeah.
So that's
No, it's only 2 lines there. How many people you want, at least?
All
all
5.
the signs?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
that,
we need a motion to sign the assessor's return. I don't think there's anything we can
So
change on the amount.
so you, do you recall the burden
Second.
cost for that?
All in favor?
I forget what a sheriff's deputy costs, the burden cost.
You just make one, she wants everyone to sign.
All right, later, there's the letter from the commissioners is the last item of the agenda they may.
Yeah.
It may be in that.
Anyway.
So, update, you're gonna update us on the Lubex nonprofit deferred tax total, a new version of it?
You all have one of those.
You just have to find it. Like
This is 2017.
Oh, okay.
Is it in our packets?
Yep,
It
you
was
get that out?
listed out, yeah, I put it in your.
Yes, we have back to back.
Did you bring
Okay.
it back?
I gave it to you.
Oh, I don't have it.
It
No, I.
It, occupies 2 pages.
Give it to me.
There's 39 current total properties in open space in town of Lubec. And they're listed here. And their owners, if you will. Some are personal, individual taxpayers. You know, anyone who has acreage can petition and put an application in to put land in open space. And common open space, they can get a 20% tax reduction. As they, and the bulletin, you know, is main.gov site, and I have a record of the bulletin, tax bulletin, 19, I think it is. Anyway, so common open space would be 20%, and then it goes down from there. If you look at this table, at the top, you'll see maps, lots, sublots, then you'll see owner, then you'll see market assessed value. Fair 2017 fair market assessed value, which is a column that runs down to the second page, and that column totals at fair market value. All these 39 properties totals $8,672,410. Okay, that would be the number that you would multiply by the mill rate to get the total tax on these properties if they were taxed at current value, adjusted by the certified ratio of the town. So those values would look like the values that's on, you know, average Joe citizen's tax bill. You know, his house is worth $150. He gets multiplied by that gets multiplied by the mill rate of $23.85
Did
a
you say
thousand.
20% that they pay? Can you repeat this one?
Now there's different categories of open space.
Okay.
Common open space begins at 20% off.
Okay,
If you look, there may be one in here or two. Mostly those are for private citizens, you know, citizens. Let's see, but anyway, I'll get to that. Anyway, so you multiply the total valuation by the mill rate. And if you drop down below, you'll see that that value, way down at the bottom, tax on full valuation. okay? $206,836.97. That's the bottom line on full valuation at market rate times the mill rate. Now you go to the right, and you'll see the 2017 open space assessed value. Now, depending upon what class, and you see that category class over on the right-hand side, that class represents, for example, OSPP, that's open space permanently protected. That means that that land has been put in conservancy. It has a conservation easement on it, permanently protected by deed. And theoretically, that land has a restriction on it that can never be unwound, okay? There's another category called open space public access, OSPA. That means the public's free to go on there during certain times of the day. It's, you know, maybe they can hike, bike, do stuff. Maybe not camp, maybe not build fires, maybe not stay overnight. They might be able to hunt, depending upon where it is. No vehicle access. They can walk in, hike in, maybe bike in, I don't know. No, okay, anyway, so those are the classes, and that class can run all the way from common, 20%, down to 5%. That percentage represents the percentage that land is going to be assessed in column 2, open space assessed value.
It's FW, there's only 2 of them.
Forever Wild. Can never be built on. It's Forever Wild, it's, there you go. Now, go ahead.
For this OSPA, public access, people can walk on it, hike on it, that kind of thing. Is there a hunting prevention you can?
And some of these folks can hunt.
They can hunt.
They're allowed to hunt.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the public benefits that's promoted as, you know,
As part of this
plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Hunting, fishing,
Okay.
recreation,
Yes.
recreate. That's specifically mentioned as one of the benefits. So anyway, so the range of deduction can run anywhere from 20% to 95% off the fair market value. So let's take one of them. Open space assessed value, the second column, you go down to the bottom and you'll see where, given the classification of that particular parcel, right, the total assessed value in open space of these lands, of these 39 properties, is $1,095,116. Are you following me?
Mm-hmm.
That represents about 1/8 of the total fair market value assessment for these properties.
Mm-hmm.
That translates into a revenue, if you drop way down to the bottom.
26.
Tax on open space valuation is now $26,118.52. So the revenue loss for this program to the town in 2017, fix that 16 to 17, I missed that.
Mm-hmm.
That revenue loss runs for 2017, $180,718.46. That's money that would have been part of the tax commitment in terms of revenues for the town for this year. Okay?
And so I see here you have the average tax increase due to, up in bold above that. Is that per person, for 100,000?
Yes, for a 100K property, that'd be $130.88. And so the loss as the bottom line there, the loss as a percent of net assessment for the commitment was 5.81%.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, it is what it is. It's just the math.
So is there a number that theoretically, well, not theoretically, but the taxpayer is paying for this? Is that what the 138 is?
Yes.
For
Yeah.
100,000.
So if you want a $100,000 piece of property,
So I'm paying $130 to have,
if you have a double wide trailer and you got an acre of land and your tax bill is $100,000, and maybe you got a 1980 something or other double wide, assessed for 50 grand, you got an acre of land somewhere, you know, 20 or 80,000, you know. The average home price in Washington County is running about 127.
okay, so what you're showing here, there are, is that the one? So there are 2,663 acres
Yes.
protected in Lubec.
Well, this is just with open space programs. We have state of Maine properties, and between state of Maine and other tax exempt properties, there's probably another $8 million off the tax rolls. State of Maine is about 50-50 with about the same number as open space lands. They're about the same. They're on the par. The state of Maine owns a lot of that. So,
No kidding.
yeah, there's going on more of it, things keep going.
And
And
Jim,
so-
they're at zero, right?
Huh?
And that's zero. They don't pay any tax.
No,
State of Maine, zero, right?
no, they don't.
So that would be more.
Doesn't the, state park pay about 12,000 a year?
Well, I don't know, you know, I mean,
Maybe we asked, I'll just think that.
you know,
Claudia,
Oh, yeah.
Claudia is a state.
Well,
Yeah.
so
I know that
I've
this is-
got that somewhere in the back.
It
there.
would be
It's-
really
but
nice
it's
to know. You
it's
did
such-
such a
it's-
good job on this.
It's such a minuscule, it's not even registerable on a Richter scale there, you know.
And I know that this is we talked about it at the Council of Governments, Washington County Council of Governments, and it's the same kind of argument. It's like, you get all this stuff, and it sounds like the town is being ripped off by the Conservancy, but there is an exchange. And there is, you know, there is an
Yeah, and-
attraction for tourists, I almost said terrorists, eco-tourists.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so that, the amount of money that's brought into the town by these people
Mhm.
is not easy to calculate. So
Well, I think-
it's-
Well, just so, you know, you guys sent me to Augusta,
Yes,
and when they said, well, don't you guys like open space up there, or
Yeah.
are you against it, or whatever, and to which I said, that's not the issue.
that's it, yeah.
With people in the town. I said, there are people, and I said, quite frankly, I can tell you, I've been here since '03, and one of the things I've heard in every town that I've worked with is there is a community here, mostly comprised of people who have been here their whole lives, who are absolutely convinced that when Angus King became governor in 1987 and launched the DEP and got Fish and Wildlife and all this, and you know, they began to go after conservancy lands. There's an old crew in Lubec that's absolutely convinced that it's all a big plot and plan to turn everything north of Ellsworth into a park.
Yeah,
I said, I'm just telling you what
Yeah,
people
and
will
there is
tell
that
you.
perception, yeah.
And I run into them, but that's not why I'm here. Why I'm here is because there is a group of people in Lubec and in the town who've asked me to tell you that what we have a problem with here is the tax policy.
Yes,
You're trying to, Lubec's a square peg, and you're trying to pound it into a round hole
Yeah.
for conserving lands,
sure,
and the exchange of value is screwed.
Yeah.
It's not, from the town's perspective, I don't think they think it's fair.
and I totally understand that, but I always err on the side of compromise. So I'm looking at these lands, and I remember a few years ago, and I think this may have been a conservancy land, that there was a sudden wildfire that took place.
Yeah.
And all the firemen went out there, and the townspeople came out, brought I brought sandwiches, we brought a lot of stuff out there to help the guys who were putting out the fire.
Yeah.
So my question is, if that's conservancy land, the unfair part is that they're not paying some kind of a tax or a stipend.
They aren't paying tax.
Okay, explain
Yes,
that
I know
part. Okay,
But what they're doing, they'll say, we're paying tax, and I say, yeah, and then some folks will say, and, you know, we're paying our fair share. And I go, no, that's the argument in terms of the economic, exchange of value between the private sector,
Yes,
the tax-paying citizens, and
yes,
the public non-profit sector, i.e. the land trust and the
Yeah.
town.
yeah,
You know, there has to be a discussion, I think, about if the policy, it's tax policy. You need to look at the tax policy
mhm,
and figure out what, if you're gonna say we're partners with the town in conserving land, then be prepared to show us, the citizens of the town, what's in it for the citizens of the town besides more open space that,
mhm, mhm,
you know, it's nice to look at and it's wonderful to save it,
mhm.
but, you know, as Lubec and the other coastal towns up here try to pivot to economies that do not exploit the land, as all the past economies up here have exploited the land. They've whacked the trees,
Yeah.
they pulled the fish out of the ocean,
Yeah.
they dug the dirt,
Yeah.
but there's been no economy pivot to something that has an added value nature that's based upon information technology, for example, or other types of businesses.
Yeah, we don't have
tourism.
that's right. We don't have a large business or an enterprise that would offset the taxes.
Yeah, and I made that,
So I
and I
understand
told them that the problem is for the way some people here see it, is this tax policy works great if you're down in Portland or Scarborough
Yeah.
or Augusta or someplace where they've got a business base
Mhm,
that can, you know,
mhm.
balance the, you know,
Yeah,
just.
make it equitable.
But when you're talking an area where you've got some folks who are making an average of about $24,000 a year,
Sure.
which is just above the federal poverty level, 27,000,
Mhm.
and you're asking them to subsidize $130,
Mhm.
$130.
Yeah.
That's a pretty high expensive.
Could you, Jim, could you,
Sorry.
in your next free moment, doesn't have to be next meeting, do the state of Maine properties as well as the nonprofit properties?
These are the nonprofits.
These are all what about other nonprofits?
Yeah, I already have a chart. I just need to update it. I already have it made.
Like just, the churches and all of that?
Yeah, I have all
Just
that.
how many people are here that have gotten exemptions from taxes? Because 1,300 people are really bearing the brunt of so much of this. And my only comment about open space, I love open space, except I think you mentioned this when I asked you in Augusta, do many people know where they are? And I think the majority of the town, I may be wrong, don't really know where all of these, except they're very, very well marked ones, that most of these split the property on this
Well, they
list.
have signage.
US, every
Yeah.
single one of these has signage, says it's
I
public
don't know.
access, so I think that they don't.
So I don't think they do. I mean, I'm looking at Chafee, Silverman, Denbo. I've never seen a sign down. I was unaware of this.
So if it's supposed to benefit us or
Yeah.
the
How do you find
citizens of Lubec,
Yeah,
then how is it possibly bringing anybody here if nobody knows where
Well,
it is?
I asked him years ago, when one of the things I have to do as the assessor is I have to evaluate. I mean, it's not, believe it or not, it's not just a lay down process where somebody wants to put land in open space that, I, as the assessor's agent, I have to look at it and I have to approve it. And it has to pass the smell test. And I had a situation where, not to beat up on them, but where the Lubec, the medical center, they had this adult jungle gym out there, north, that had fallen into disuse and
the ropes course.
Yeah. and it wasn't being used for anything. And I went out there and looked at it. It's pretty run down, dilapidated.
And dangerous.
And so here they come with a new application, and they teamed up with Land for Maine's Future and the Maine Coast Heritage Trust to get the land and to get the money. to buy the additional 36 acres that surrounded that ropes course. And that 36 acres was generating probably, at its prime shorefront, it was generating probably $5,000–6,000 worth of revenue
Per year.
per year. So tax revenue, so I challenged it. I said, well, what are you guys doing? I mean, you got this jungle gym. How does having 36 additional acres around a dilapidated jungle gym fit in with the healthcare mission, which is one of the things I have to look at, what for health care providers, fit in with your mission for your organization? And how do you, I mean, healthcare entities, hospitals, whatever, they get tax exemption on their properties. But it should fit in with their mission.
So what happened?
Well, I went over there and I argued for 3 hours. I dug into it with the CFO. I'm trying to understand a couple things. How did it fit in? I mean, those are examinations I had to do. I wanted to see their income statements. I did. I wanted to make sure that there was not any ongoing pecuniary interest, that they weren't just getting this land, getting this money to get this land, so they could then turn around and sell it. And so after a bit of jousting, I approved it.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't understand. Maine Coast Heritage maintained first right of refusal should they ever decide to sell that in the deal, because it did not carry a conservation easement in perpetuity. So I was suspicious that they were just gonna get the money and get it and then kind of sell it off and make a profit on it. That's not the name of the game. Well, as it turned out, they didn't. And
Well, a ropes course in and of itself is a very wonderful thing to have, and they're in other states as well. But
That's
it
great.
seems to me they haven't managed this ropes course.
well, how are they going to manage a ropes course when I said, how do you use this thing?
Yeah.
And what's it all about? Well, Girl Scouts can go out there and make s'mores,
Yeah.
and people in wheelchairs can go out there and get wheeled around on the
But you
on the
know,
ground.
those
Like,
things
well,
really have.
the average age of a citizen of Lubec is what? How?
Let's not go there, Jim,
That's
okay?
another
Okay.
I think.
I'll get very deep on it. All right.
You did a great job. So can you do that other,
Yes.
little task at your convenience?
Any other questions?
Because we're
No,
gonna go on.
this
to
is
the
a
next
sticky,
thing.
I know this is difficult,
Well,
I know this is.
Well, I'm just saying,
Gordon,
again, it's not, nobody objects to this, and I do not. I just simply told the tax committee that it's policy.
Yes, okay.
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
So under old business, we have motion to close the assessors. Oh, the assessors, motion to close the assessors meeting. I'll make a motion to close the assessors meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we're gonna reopen the select board meeting, get this under control. So we're at old business for that. Just an announcement that we did get a letter from the head of CDBG to go forward with the official application for the micro enterprise grant, which we're requesting $140,000 for, and we're busy doing that. So that's a good thing. Tony, the Harbor Board and the Dayton's letter?
Yes, the Harbor Board, actually, the event that happened with the riding shed, felt that they were obligated to make a notice with regard to the smoke shed to the Lubec Landmark Committee. And under, all members of the Harbor Board voted that a letter be sent to hopefully prevent another catastrophic event.
New business, Kurt Anderson, Music in the Park.
Yes. So I came and spoke to you last month about possibly getting help from the town through Maine Municipal Association for the insurance to do the lamps programs in the park. The town was not able to do that through Maine Municipal Association. And I just want to let everybody know, just so everybody's aware of the costs that are going to be required for me and our board of directors to try to do this. we're looking at a bill of $4,000 to put on these concerts in the park for insurance. So I'm wondering, first of all, my first question is it possible to shop around for insurance? I was hoping that somebody could give me an answer to that. Do I have to go through the TULIP program, or can I go through another insurance company to find a better rate? Because I really feel like this is not going to work. Second, I was hoping, because it does seem like even though I've only shopped for insurance through the TULIP program, I've shopped for insurance before, and I can't imagine that another insurance company is going to come down so low that it's going to be like a miracle, right? So I was hoping I could ask the town if you would waive the $25 fee for, it's not very much, it's not going to help us too much, but it's going to be a help, and I was hoping that the town could just take the hit on the $25 fee for the use of Stockford Park. 4 times, we only need it 4 times this time because we're going to, our first concert's gonna be part of the marathon, so I won't be.
Are you charging people to come to the?
No, this is a no admission concert. It's a suggested donation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you said no admission, I couldn't.
Well,
And
suggested
we
donation.
had-
Anybody can come. You don't have to pay, but there is a suggestion.
We had mentioned that if you are a town appointed committee doing music in the park, then you would fall under the MMA insurance, but you chose not to do that.
No, we would rather be our own nonprofit entity. We've done too much legwork already, and we want to maintain control of this, because it won't only be we envision that in the future this won't be a Lubec only type of situation. We have members of our board of directors come from Machias, East Machias, and Dennisville. So we're in the future we see this possibly spreading to Eastport and Machias. So that wasn't going to work for us. We decided to just remain an independent entity.
I guess you're the only band that's gonna play?
No, this Lamps, in case anyone doesn't know what Lamps is, it's envisioned to be, and we did have our first board of directors meeting, so we are on the way.
Yes, 25 per
It's
band.
envisioned to be an association of like-minded musicians who want to raise funds for the various charities around this part of town.
So how many events would you foresee during
This year
your
we're
season?
hoping to do 4, but the state of Maine is supposedly supposed to be able to process an articles of incorporation in 5 to 10 days, but I sent that in about a month ago, and I haven't heard anything yet. So, and I have a feeling that because we can file, our 501 filing is going to be the easy version, I have a feeling that the feds will probably come through with that pretty quickly, but if they don't,
So
I envision 4 concerts, but if we can't get all of those ducks in a row, we may only have as many as 2.
I'm just saying, from where I'm going, I don't know if it was going to be a precedent to waive the $25 fee, but if it came to donations, I'd support a weekend. So if you do 4 concerts, now you're down to $75 if I can do that. So I'm saying from that avenue.
You're saying that the town would waive one?
No, I'm saying
weekend.
I don't think it's a precedent the town should. But I'm saying as a private donation, if you're looking for the 25 to be covered.
Oh,
I'm
well,
saying
I
I would
did
sponsor.
not come here to solicit private
But I'm saying
donations,
that is an avenue.
I will come to you after
If
we
you go that way,
Okay.
you might find me standing out there as a private citizen in the parking lot.
Would be more than happy to.
Selling ice cream.
Not yet.
Well, I'm hoping that donation can be used towards our insurance bill. So
Yeah.
I'm still here asking for the town to
Yeah.
waive the fee for the use of the park, at least this year.
I
4
have no
times.
objection to that.
You wanna make a motion?
I make a move that we waive the fee this year.
Thank you.
Second.
Anybody else?
Dan,
Want a second?
you're not second.
You seconded it? Oh,
No, I made the motion.
No, I actually don't think we should, but.
Oh.
Oh, well,
I'm
second.
a minority of 1.
What do you think, Colin?
I agree with you, Dan. I don't want to set a precedent, and I believe and we hope and everything is great for you. And I think that as a, from any business in town, as a point of view, it could be, a certain famous hardware store that's sponsoring the event and paying the $25
Yeah,
for the concert.
because I'm sure the electricity is gonna be what is it bill from there? It's a lot, no?
It's not much.
Not too much.
Well, it hasn't been used, really, not a lot.
It's locked up, right?
Right.
I can have the books.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for your time.
Sorry.
Well, it's been a long time, and this policy is very, very minimal. I mean,
I know.
it's free to use the park, the fee is only for the use of the electric, so the taxpayer doesn't have to,
I'm concerned about the insurance, that seems excessive.
well, as a nonprofit, you should be able to get a break on insurance if you're
Yeah.
doing something
I know
for,
the Pentecostal group, Roberta Hooper, they have
Yes.
insurance.
what are they,
So check with Roberta
Yeah, I'll talk with them.
and see what they get, they filed their insurance. with
Yeah, and
us.
I'll call my own insurance company, but I just wanted
I guess
to, I wanted to make sure that we weren't required to have insurance through Tulip.
And I think Summer
supposed to be.
Keys does the concerts at the church, and I know there's some kind of fee that they have to pay to, so.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it'll be next
Melissa?
week.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that could be like an
wonderful presentation in the assessors meeting.
Yeah, this is a long meeting. I like to come and talk with the select board about every year anyway, and all the, conversation in the media about taxes and conservation prompted me to call Renee. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is what I'm gonna say, but I thought I would just write it down. Oops, I think there's two there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And just, I will, preface, I don't know if you're gonna say anything about this, but Land for Maine's Future, this particular land trust has been instrumental in helping us obtain, our safe harbor project and, to the tune of over $59,000. We're getting the other 54 from Land for Maine's Future and the rest is coming from Maine Coast Heritage Trust, which Melissa represents.
Yes,
And so we're thankful for that. And I just to let the citizens know that they are helping the town
great.
in a different way.
Great. So conservation lands do have an impact on the local economy, but to suggest that it's only a tax impact is simplistic and it's just wrong. And to say that there's no industry that has benefited from conservation land, I think is, I can hardly believe that anyone would say that, given what's happened in the town in recent years with all the restaurants, the lodging, the, every business in town benefits from the tourists, the summer residents, the regional, all the activity that happens in summer. It's the growth industry in town. But before I really get going on that, I wanted to talk about some figures that I've come across recently that clearly argue that state cuts to towns have had enormous impact to local taxpayers, and that really blaming conservation lands for putting this town in such a tax jeopardy, I think is using conservation as a scapegoat. And I have figures for the revenue sharing for Lubec. In 10 years, it's dropped $107,000 a year. That's revenue sharing. So that's tiny compared to what's happened with our schools and the state funding for schools. And on the last page of this, I have a chart of fiscal years starting from 2005 to 2017. We used to get $800,000 from the state in to help fund our schools. $800,000. This past year, we got $138,000. That's more than $600,000 a year. More than $650,000 a year
Yes.
every year. So between the revenue sharing and the school funding, you've got, it's significant money. It's more than $900,000 a year. So conservation kind of pales compared to that. I've heard a bunch of concerns about the current use tax categories: open space, tree growth, farmland protection. These categories were not made up by conservation organizations. They exist because the state legislature and the state voters decided that that was important to our state. So, it's not like conservation organizations decided, oh, we're gonna figure out how to impact the town in negative ways. We're paying the tax that the law says says we're required to pay, and in some cases more.
Yeah.
But we are not creating a circumstance that the tax law says there's anything wrong with. And in fact, the town of Lubec has about 28% of all Lubec land is in one of these current use categories. We're our own town, and it doesn't really matter what any other towns do, but we're about in the middle of the pack in terms of other towns, and some of the other area towns of current use categories. East Machias has 45.9% of their land in current use tax categories. Jonesboro, almost 52%. Jones Court, 31.5%. Pembroke, 22. Perry, 25. Whiting, 55. So we're about in the middle of the pack in terms of having land in current use. And at the same time, conservation lands have a remarkably positive impact on what happens in Lubec and on Lubec's tax base. People come here because of the recreational opportunities, and the business success is what fuels the health and vitality of the town in these years. If you talk with anyone in lodging, restaurant owners, boat service, land management, grocery store, gift shop owner, or the visitors themselves, they'll tell you that one major reason that they come here is because of the recreational opportunities and, of course, the stunning beauty of our town.
Certainly the marathon. That we hear that all the time, right?
Yep. And Summer Keys is another good example. And last I heard of people who have come to Summer Keys, 31 of them have bought houses. And they've not bought houses so they can carry their cello around. They've bought houses because there's opportunities, outdoor opportunities that exist here. And we're also supporting traditional economic activities, fishing, clamming, wrinkling, tipping, trapping, hunting. Land trusts have increased access to these natural resources and protected habitat. Carol mentioned the Safe Harbors Project. That's one that Maine Coast Heritage Trust and the Butler Foundation has helped a lot with for 18 years. Through Maine Coast Heritage Trust, I've done an elementary school outing club. This school year alone, up to this point, we've had 181 student events. That's repeat kids, of course, because it's double the student population in town. But it's something that we're adding to the town that's not quantifiable in terms of taxes, but critical. Working on additional water access, we purchased one piece and given it to the town with an endowment for maintenance. Trailheads, trails, parking lots are maintained, public roads and beaches are cleaned up, guided walks are given. Bear hunters use the extensive habitat on Loop Cove Road all season long. And, I know the town of Lubec sent, Jim to Augusta to talk to the commission of the, Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry Commission. And, they did a lot of research, they heard a lot of people, and they came up with 3 findings, as I understand it. One of them is a majority of conserved lands owned by nonprofits are contributing to local property tax coffers, adding to the economy, improving air and water quality, and protecting wildlife habitats. 2 is public access and traditional uses should be retained when conserved, which is not a recommendation, it's just a statement. And the 3rd is that adverse effects caused by tree growth, farmland, open space, and working waterfront programs, which base taxation on current use rather than higher market value, warrant more scrutiny. So I think that it's absolutely appropriate for the legislature to look into it, to look into the current use categories. It got voted in before. Maybe it's time to change that. But to think of the changes on a local level just doesn't make sense. It's a state taxation.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yep.
You think of what?
It's not a local issue.
What is it?
Dealing with the current use tax categories.
What makes you say that?
Because,
When a land trust comes in and buys a piece of tree growth land that has accrued, the potential over 20 or 30 years, a $250,000 recoupment of taxes that these citizens subsidized on that tree growth land. And you folks, the legislation gives you folks the right to come in and buy that and take that land. That $250,000 never gets repaid.
well, that's a hypothetical circumstance,
It's not
but
hypothetical.
any
I
landowner,
challenge you to
excuse
go,
me, I'm
I
trying to
challenge
answer
you to
your
go add it
question.
up.
Any
for
landowner,
This was done to in Lubec, and
any,
in Machiasport, and in Road Bluffs. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in this town alone.
right,
Was lost.
and those
over the
tax
last 10 years.
categories are available to any landowner, not just
No, they were-
conservation
they were-
organizations.
They were done
Excuse
10
me,
years
my
ago.
turn now.
Yeah. And I don't like what you're saying about this because it's not true. Excuse me.
One person at a time. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. I think that if there are to be changes in the state tax use policy, it's gotta be at the state level. I am a taxpayer in this town, I'm a landowner in this town, my husband's a business owner in this town. Our children went to school in this town, we're proud to be in this town. You know, we love where we live. And I'm proud to be part of Maine Coast Heritage Trust and add to the ecological
Yes.
advantages and opportunities
Do
in
you
this town.
have a list of your properties and the different codes, like, let's say, is there a mapping of what Maine Coast Heritage Trust owns? And let's say one of them is for hunting and traditional uses, but one isn't, one maybe is just for access to the shoreline. Do you have?
In
One
Lubec?
other question, yeah, just in Lubec.
There are none that are not open to public use and hunting and traffic.
So is there, do you
No.
have a informational sheet that someone, if they were interested? But because I think one question that came up in Augusta was, other than what you brought up, was I personally, and maybe it's my fault, don't know of a lot of them, where they are, except for what we're working on our own.
Well, I know
And I
I'm-
might be interested in actually taking a walk on one of them, and I don't think the general public,
Yeah.
or at least I don't know where they are.
Hamilton Cove, who
We
had,
did go by there the
Yeah.
other day. I had Ralph show me where some of them were.
uh-huh.
So, and thank you
Well,
for that.
your tax book has them listed as 12 different properties, though, for instance, Hamilton Cove is made up of maybe 5. So we don't really own that many we don't own 12 separate preserves.
Mhm.
We own, preserves and that have been clumped.
Mhm. Well, one of them is out there off of Dixie Road and where the boats are right now, that I went out and saw that. Is that public access?
There is public access, that's not owned by a conservation organization,
That's not owned by
that's
you,
privately owned, and they,
but you have
Maine
some
Coast
sort of.
holds a conservation easement on it.
Because you have an easement.
Yeah,
So you
and
have-
some easements say no public access, this one happens to say public access. And
Okay,
it's true, there's not a sign, but there is a sign made, and it's sitting in the book,
well, I'm not
Somebody's
not to bother you, but just I think it would be really nice to have some, little map of the land trusts and where they are and.
Yeah.
Just, I think that would be helpful.
So I met yesterday with Ellen Hostert, who's the president of the board of Down East Coastal Conservancy, and she was planning on coming when this meeting was at 6 o'clock, but she teaches at UMM and was not able to come, but just wanted me to convey that she's happy to answer questions, and if there are any, as am I.
I think she was at the COG
Oh, yeah.
Meeting, Washington County Council of Governments meeting recently.
Excuse
Yes, very nice person, yeah.
me, I have a technician being at my house at 4 o'clock from
Oh.
Bangor.
Okay,
Thank you, and
You get
bye-bye.
previous permission to go.
thank you.
We still have a
Don't
quorum.
drive too fast.
Sign your pass.
Okay, well,
Any other
question, Dan?
Good.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for helping the Safe Harbor.
Okay,
Okay, where are we?
offshore oil
Offshore
drilling.
drilling. So Renee, was originally going to go to the public hearing today and speak, but since we had all that paperwork for the Nordic Delights and all, she submitted a testimony. Did you want, somebody me to read it?
And that's a good thing because they emailed me just before I came and said they were still holding that despite the weather. So-
Well, actually, the whole conversation came up last time when I think I said to the people here that we'd like the citizens' opinion, and we wanted to just make the opinion for the town, and then there was about 100 comments on the community vote on social media on I'd say 98% were no.
Mhm.
They were not there were very few positive comments. So Renee wrote, I found a nice letter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak out against offshore drilling. For centuries, the people of coastal Maine have made their livings off the bountiful sea. This is a year-round source of income to thousands of people, according to an article on thepressherald.com in 2015. Maine fishermen landed a record of $616.5 million catch. This significant amount of money provided fishing families with income that in turn gets put back into the economy. January 17, 2018, thebalance.com released an article reflecting the devastating impacts of the worst oil spill in the United States has ever seen. Beginning on April 20th, 2010, an explosion occurred on the Deepwater Horizon oil rig located in the Gulf of Mexico. 11 were killed in the blast. 3 days later, another explosion on the rig occurred, this time sinking the rig. An estimated 184 million gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico from April until August, when efforts to shut off the spill was finally successful. The effects of the oil spill devastated the local wildlife, fisheries, and economies spanning 4 states. Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida shorelines were all impacted. Nobody ever expects a disaster such as this to happen, but it did. That means it likely could happen again. Why take a chance in crippling the state of Maine? We are known for our beautiful, rugged coastline, seafood, and so much more. Please join the town of Lubec in saying no to offshore drilling. So, thank you for a wonderful letter, and I'm really proud of all that you do, Renee, for us. Make the select board look good. Let's see here.
Health education.
What happened to Dan? We lost him too? Oh my goodness, well, no voting till Dan's back. So, we got that refund from adult to ed, and Renee just had some ideas. I'm not sure how you wanna proceed with that $133,000. I had a question that if some of that money, when it was audited, was found to have been in past years, that maybe a percentage of that should have been returned to the school. But if you look at the money refunded to either the town or the school, and it's used to buy down, partially buy down the taxes, or be put back in the community for, I think the best thing would be to, what we voted on the other meeting, to help scholarships, to help
Yes,
train
yes.
our youth so that they stay here, plumbers, electricians, skilled trades, skills, that we expand that program.
It has to,
So,
yeah.
so that if they want to, work under someone, that would cause them to stay, and then we would have more families and more children here. We don't, when the youth move away, then that's the problem. That's one of our
that and fiber optics.
So I guess it doesn't matter if the school gets it back or we get it back, as long as it's used well.
Yeah.
It's used for if the purpose
And I
it was
know that
supposed to be
Tina
used.
has various people coming into town, like exhibit shows, theater, that kind of thing, and she always has to scrounge for that money. I mean, she has to find money somehow. Tina. Well,
Oh, Tina.
we might see if she could use some of that money to,
Well, yes, I think that's a good idea.
For the children's stage adventures?
I was just thinking of that.
Yes.
Because they really have to
Yes.
work hard, maybe we can help with that.
yeah, that's always
But,
a
I
huge
believe
amount for them
that
to try.
Renee's idea of putting it in CDs and getting investment off
Yeah.
some of it is also a very good idea.
Okay.
That a percentage of the money should be put in a long-term investment, so
Sure.
we don't just spend it all and then we have nothing in 10
It would take
years.
a town vote to reappropriate money for different things that it wasn't originally intended for.
So as long as it stays within adult ed, so I believe the scholarship for training, if the person is 17 or older, or 18 or older, is adult ed. Barbara?
When you say adult ed, are you referring to young people that graduate high school and want to go up to WCCC? Because that's the only place they get plumbing training and welding and carpentry and
It's open for
large
discussion.
machines.
It's open for discussion.
That's what I'm saying, that's where your adult ed would have to go. It can't come out of Axiom because they don't offer it.
No.
And we don't offer it down here.
We're not doing
As
this
far
year.
as what Rachel was saying about things that are being offered and Tina has to scrounge around, I do know that Julia Bradley has a program down there every year. She gets at least 4 or 5 people in the community who are licensed plumbers or electricians to go down there and give a demonstration to those students, to get them interested in what they might study in high
Yes.
school leading on to college. So I guess what I'm alluding to, everything doesn't have to revolve around money. It can revolve around somebody giving back to their community by giving their time to show these children, and it only lasts an hour, and she's looking for people. I know she does it at least 4 times a year.
Yeah, I was aware of
Right,
that.
but I think.
But we're back to the Axiom. Axiom can offer skills, just because they don't, they can.
I'm just saying, Rachel, they don't offer plumbing,
Yeah.
electrical, they don't offer those, they offer computers,
Yes.
they offer certain things, but I'm asking, are you talking about for kids that once they graduate high
Yes.
school? That's my question. So if they can't afford to go on to college, this is the scholarship, but then again, Carol also at the previous meeting said they have to put up the money up front, pass the course, and then they reimburse them. That makes the most sense, because otherwise, they may go and fail out, and what have you?
And there are, I think that the young adults that are in most need for this training are probably the ones that don't have the funds to put up front. So there's a kind of a misnomer there as to how do you help someone out of a poverty state, getting out and not.
To respond to that, Carol, there's a Pell Grant and there are scholarships at every college based on your income that they can get you. So they need to look into that perhaps first. This should not be the first avenue, they should look at the other.
You're right, in the college they do, but I think maybe the CNA program and the high set program may not have a scholarship.
Yes, they do. Up at
Sunrise County
WCCC,
Economic
there certainly is.
We should-
They're not
we
doing
should- we
CNA
should
anymore.
move on.
So yeah, we should move on. But anyway, we're just still talking about it. What are we doing now? Oh, CDBG is having a public hearing on April 4th. That is at 5 o'clock before one of our meetings on April 4th. For the 4 participants of the grant, it's required by the CDBG for a public hearing to be held, and all of the participants that are applying must be here to answer questions of the people asking for the funds. So they will be here, and welcome to come, and we're just announcing that it will be on April 4th.
You have a time on that?
5 o'clock. And if it runs late, then the select board meeting will just start after the public hearing is over. If it goes till 6:30, you won't start till 6:30. So we already did the Norton Delights thing. Opportunity zone.
Oh, that's, yes.
Bob Peacock contacted me, letting us know that this opportunity zone is coming to fruition. He has worked hard on this, apparently. It's a new thing that the state is offering. He encouraged us to apply and to get Lubec qualified and designated as an opportunity zone. So it basically just took an email to Deborah Johnson. She's in charge of the DECD, Department of Economic and County Development. There were 3 bullets that I had to answer questions on, and that was it. It's not really an application at this point, it's just showing that there's interest to becoming that. So I haven't heard back from her, but
And we certainly have
I
a
did
meeting.
do it.
We definitely want to
Yeah.
be part of that if we can do
Yeah.
it. Thank you for following up on that.
Yeah.
Now we have a letter from the county commissioners, letter regarding escalating crime. Does anyone want that read? Anybody want to hear about that? It's page long.
We've been having the public hearings, the public meetings, and information.
Thank you for coming, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too, Kurt.
Thank you.
I think crime is important, so this will be, we only have this one last thing. Do you want to sign the sewer commitment first? This January, the Washington County Commissioners have held 2 public meetings focused on addressing the escalating rate of crime in Washington County. At those meetings, the Sheriff's Office and other municipal chiefs of police spoke regarding the increases in crime fueled by the increasing internal and external drug trade. Resulting discussions between law enforcement and municipal officers at these meetings led to a suggestion and belief by some that to combat this growing epidemic, the county should consider adding more law enforcement personnel. Municipal officials present at the January 23rd meeting requested information on what the impact such additional law enforcement expenditures would have on the local property tax and their town residents. The Sheriff's Office calculated the cost of those deputies to be $529,555 for the first year due to initial startup costs, with that amount decreasing in subsequent years. This first year addition would add 8.7% to the current approved budget of $6,223,310. Based upon current state valuations for your respective town, Lubec, this would calculate to be an additional $25,612 or $18.85 per person. Although these decisions may have to fall to the next budget cycle, the commissioners are looking to further engage the towns of Washington County now to build a consensus as to what the best approach is to combat this issue. The commissioners would greatly appreciate input from the municipal officers and to hear the citizens' thoughts on our collective ability to make further investments in law enforcement and to combat this issue. We would greatly appreciate a response with your town's permission on this matter. With your town's position, not on this matter, not permission. We will be compiling information to be presented to the commissioners on their March 8th meeting. That's tomorrow. Did you know that? Also, there has been some thought as to the forming of a municipal officers working group to discuss this issue. If your town has any municipal officer that would be willing to take part in such a group, please let us know. So how do you want to respond to that letter, since I guess
I can email her before I leave tonight.
you can, or you can probably, you have a computer at home. Well, you can send it from home, right? If you give them a general idea. What is your stance on this?
Well, I think that, we talk about the increased crime rate, but I think it goes hand in hand with the increased opioid crisis. So you can't talk about one without the other. Because I don't have the statistics on it.
I think he just wants to know if you want, do you want to spend more money on the deputies? I think that's basically
Only
the
if
question.
they want to spend more time on prevention as opposed to, nailing the criminals kind of thing.
Which doesn't seem to be happening.
No.
Yes, Dan?
I think it's all about prevention, and I think it's teaching and the children making them aware, and I think an earlier age than they do.
Yeah.
I'd also like to look at just hearing from people in town, there doesn't seem to be a lot of penance for your errors in your ways recently, so.
Not in the drug realm, anyway. What about citizens? Mike,
What about
Maureen?
citizens what?
Give me
They
thoughts on
want
this.
citizens.
Sending a letter? Well, my personal opinion is intervention is more effective than uniforms and cars and all this stuff that costs money, and I really wish we would engage in a new approach to the problem. The community sees the problem, they let someone know who should be in a position of authority, and then nothing happens. They see the problem continue until it becomes a drama. And why do we let it go that long? But I guess at $529,000?
A lot of money for just one more car
Wow.
over such a large
That's
area.
staggering. That is staggering.
Okay, just a second. So, but it starts in the school, does it not? Education at the 7th and 8th grade?
It should really start before that, and I think that, I don't see a police presence in school for anything other than punitive. And it may need to be in there, and it seems when I said this to the police officer that was here a couple of years ago. I said, you need to be in there and show yourself as to be a friend and somebody to be trusted, because right now you go into the school and you're the enemy.
Father?
Look how successful DARE has been, all right?
Dare.
Dare.
Oh, dare!
Yeah. Boondoggle.
Yeah.
The same guy goes in, gets the same talk, and the police department gets new cars and everything out of it. And that hits me too, is why is it that people can be arrested again and again and again, and 2 days later go home?
Yeah.
And pick up the old business.
Yes.
We don't have to, ask too many people who the cause of the trouble are. So, let's get serious. And I think appointing another police officer looks good, doesn't do any good. And I think when we talk about it, a lot of decent people in our town have, through no fault of their own, become victims of it. And putting another police officer on duty won't stop it. It does take community commitment.
And I think a couple of years ago, I spoke with, when the police department was here, about a public commitment. I said, what about, the neighborhood watch? And he goes, those are only as good as people participating. He goes, I can tell you, and he wasn't gonna list it, though I think Joanne was very vocal at the time, of instances where somebody did this, somebody did that, but nobody turns them in.
I
So
think
it's only as good as it works.
a lot of fine people in this town have fallen victim to the opioid crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And putting another the cop sitting up here didn't do
That's right.
anything to help them.
Yeah.
Or to them.
And you have to take a look at the training these policemen have.
Yeah.
How are they trained? Are they trained to help, to go in and talk? I think policemen these days need to be maybe even a little bit more of a social worker, a little bit more of a priest or a minister. You need to have many strings to your bow.
I think you make a good point. I think prevention, when you live in a rural community and the size of a small state, Washington County is huge.
Yeah.
How is one or two more officers going to help really? Not that I'm not against this, but I think you're right, prevention. Renee wants to speak.
I went to both of these informational meetings, and everything that you've said tonight was said at those meetings. You all have the same concerns that everybody was voicing then. They kept prefacing the whole meeting is it wasn't about the drugs, that they weren't having those meetings because of the drugs. They know that's an issue. They are having them because of the crime. And
Oh, what's
the
the
level of
drugs on
crime
Yeah,
has escalated from what it used to be. It's a new ballgame now. You have organized crime. They know of 7 different, and organized crime means New York, Massachusetts. They're here. There have been 2 homicides in Washington County. There have been armed robberies. It's different than old Mayberry. It's not Mayberry anymore. So that's
I
kind
do
of
think
what
that
they're
the
doing.
opioid, the drugs are an integral part of it though.
Yes,
I
it
do.
is.
That's why we're having the crime. It's because of the drugs.
But prevention was also mentioned. First and foremost, one person, I think it was Warren's son, that said that they would rather have seen the amount of money that's allotted for dealing with the aftermath after the drugs have happened and after. They would rather have seen that amount of money go towards the prevention. You know, it wasn't, and that was monumental.
This is such an aside, but did anybody see 60 Minutes this past Sunday? They went into German prisons where prisoners can be in there for murder, but it's like living in an apartment, and they do an incredible amount of work on rehab. And so that a murderer can get out and go back into society, but a ton of energy is put into making that person a valuable citizen. And I don't
So
think
they're
that
closing prisons right now.
I'll continue in saying, the sheriff's department is at their resources end. We pay for selective service, it's called. We have an additional amount of money that is supposed to put an officer here dedicated to Lubec. They can only do that with leftover people, leftover time, and they don't even have enough to do that. They don't. They're just so maxed out on all their duties. And I'll continue in saying that my predecessor was on the Washington County Budget Committee. So therefore, I became on that committee. And I went to one of these meetings, and this was what we were faced with. And I had to make a decision for Lubec. I didn't have a select board decision to help me. I had to make a choice. And in that moment, I voted for the 3 additional deputies. And I hope it's what the town would have wanted. I went and
But we just got
and
one
went
for
with
now.
my heart,
Yeah.
knowing that all the towns that were represented in that room have their own police departments. Eastport, Machias,
Yes,
Baileyville,
Yes.
Princeton, they all have their own police departments. The sheriff's department is our local department, so.
Yeah.
If you
I
want
also
me to
think-
vote differently next time,
yeah, no, it's not that, it's just that I'm looking at the police business, how they become policemen and it's like doing things the way you've always done and expecting a different result is ludicrous.
That's called insanity.
Yeah.
All right, so do you have a general idea of how we would comment on this prevention as well as, well, we've already got one new sheriff this year, so we can see how that goes. This doesn't have to be voted on. If adding a sheriff seems to reduce the crime, then maybe I imagine the town citizens would be interested in maybe adding another sheriff this the following year, but 2 at a time, maybe 1 each year for the next 3 years to but seeing how it's working first instead of just jumping into 3 right away. I don't know.
I do think that this is a fairly good cross-section of the town. And maybe
It's a compliment.
Yes. I think a letter to, was it Betsy? Does she want, a letter to her reiterating some of the stuff we've said here. That the consensus is that perhaps the police training needs to take a good look at this stuff. And how,
And we're definitely prevention
yes.
as well.
Yeah.
You can't just police. Barbara?
Carol, I agree with Rachel regarding getting it into the schools, but much younger. You gotta start in kindergarten. You gotta start that these things are wrong. I wanna highly praise the Arise program. I think just like we have Alan on here, we need another program for people who wanna get off of drugs. Here in the program, people don't have a way to travel long distances. There's no reason why the medical center can't get some kind of a program over there. And if they do, that's great, but I don't even see it publicized. But I wanna say Arise has done a wonderful job in coming together and helping a lot of people, so I kind of agree with everybody here. Prevention is the answer, but you can't prevent it if you don't know what's gonna happen to you. You've gotta talk from where these people have been. I remember being in the school when they had somebody that came and talked at Dare, Rachel,
Yep.
was there, and he would be there every week, and he'd answer questions of the kids. We also had a gentleman come in and gave a talk in the auditorium on AIDS. And after the whole program, he said, and I'm one of them, and you don't have to be afraid of it. They have to understand, these are the things that can happen to you if you're not careful. So I agree with what everybody is saying here, but Rachel, as far as school is concerned, absolutely get a police officer down there, but starting it all the way up, every grade needs to know they're there to help you if you need help.
Do you remember Mr. Rogers
Oh,
and
yeah.
Officer Clemens? And it's, you know, there you go.
Okay, so you got the gist, you wanna
I
send
have
that to us?
Do any of the municipal officers want to be a part of their group?
To talk about police and,
Solution to,
oh, why not? I'm not doing anything.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think it'd be interesting, currently there's a federal court case regarding, no one's ever able to go after the manufacturers. Similar to like, and look what happened to smoking has drastically been taken back due to the fact that you could sue the tobacco industry, and I think that's, I wanna say Mississippi.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I'm not sure, but something to keep an eye on, because certainly we can talk about all the drug dealers we want, but the producers of the drug certainly currently have a carte blanche and they're making all their money, and if this,
And it may be closer to home than you realize.
and right, if this case hopefully goes the right way, then people would be able to go after the makers of the product, so that's another avenue that's taking a positive step.
Yeah, just in favor, as long as, well, she's asking, is the motion, are we in favor of adding it's 2 more officers, right, for next year? One now, we've got one, and they're asking for another 2, correct? What do you want her to say?
That's okay, except,
Well, add
I want that
to
letter.
$18
yeah,
per person, so that would be double that.
I'm for,
It's 18 per
throw it
person.
on to prevention, I don't see
Yeah.
where but
split.
that's me.
Well, you wanna compromise with adding 1 a year and see if it works. You're adding 1 this year, did it work? Add another 1 the next year, did it work? And then money for prevention, that's what I would say.
Let's vote on that.
mhm.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I would move that we, okay, 1 officer per year, but it be with
With-
a contingency or a.
With feedback,
Yeah.
we need a,
Yeah,
they come and say what happened, what
Yes.
got better?
Yeah.
What got
Yeah.
better by adding another officer?
A review,
Yes.
and what are they prepared to do? I mean, if they're just sitting
Plus,
here in their
we need
car.
monies for prevention,
Yeah.
so that's the P, for the capital P, prevention.
Yeah.
Review on success.
Well, review, yes,
and
review.
Key on
How
prevention.
did adding an officer this year help prevent? It has to be statistically you should be able to see some, for half, what, $500,000, you should see something
And to,
getting
to
better.
Barbara's point, I mean, growing up, you always had stuff coming in here.
Sure.
And having been there in the, school a couple years ago, we don't have that presence anymore.
Motion made by Carol, seconded, no, Rachel.
All in favor?
Let me reread it. Approve 1 officer per year with review on success and key on prevention.
Yes, that sounds good.
And if they're gonna be here, they should be more at the school than anywhere else during the day.
So you want them to do outreach, social
Yeah.
outreach, and I think that's a very good idea.
And, Jim, whatever your name is.
This one's rough, what was that thing? Dog.
When you say prevention, what do you mean?
We were just talking, we were thinking about,
We do not need to rehash this.
yeah,
Education.
police presence in the school,
Yeah.
their image
We
changes.
need to finish up.
Yeah.
So we need a motion to sign the commitment, the sewer commitment for this quarter.
Motion signed, fair minutes for the first one.
Second, all in favor?
You know, I'm not gonna say so.
Thank you. So. Public comment? Mike?
I wanted to address the board after hearing the presentation from Maine Coast Heritage Trust. I was glad to hear that the word PAC, and I think that's part of the problem we're having, is we're not just dealing with one entity that is buying land and reducing the tax, it's a group. And the blind spot in this wonderful plan to protect land is that at a certain point, your community has given up too much, and it is not healthy in its own revenue generating things through tax valuation. And I certainly wouldn't beat up on any representative of a land trust, but I will beat up on you, because you are the filter between the taxpayer and these groups that are operating without any hesitation in our town. And I once again insist that you draw them to the table and try to make them prove this intangible return of value to our community, because many people still don't see it. And just let me finish, please. So my concern is conveyed as a member of the legislative body. I've heard from many others, but I am merely passing on my concerns of what I've seen in 15 years. And I share with you, having gone to Augusta to present the town's position, 7 years ago was when there should not have been one more acre given up. But 7 years later, here I am asking this board to please look into it and at least come up with some way of slowing it down. I'm certainly not a corporate type person when it comes to these organizations, but at this point, I think with all of the knowledge that they have behind them, they should be determining that maybe we're hurting our presence by gobbling up more and more without truly returning to the community what it is they've given us the impression that why this was going to be good. Like as I said, rebuilding the food shed. There's a lot of good agricultural land that is under one form of a tax exemption or not. Why aren't they trying to support young farmers to get a start? And you need to hold their feet to the fire. Okay,
Right.
I'm done. Thank you.
I don't recall in the 3.5 years I've been on the select board ever having anyone come in front of us and request permission to be put in a category of open space. Never.
Well,
I've
Mike,
never.
If I could ask Jim.
So I don't know how we'd be controlling
When any of
that.
these organizations want to do that, they come to you, right?
Yeah, it
So
come to him,
can't
we never
we-
hear about it.
So can't we simply, in a motion or something, require
Yeah.
that when they come to you, we
It needs
need
to
to
be run
then
by
set up
us.
an appointment, they need to come,
Like
it
a
needs to come
maximum.
through the board, whatever year
Yeah.
or month or decade
And then
that
to
is.
the people, before they're given permission.
They submit an application on the classified land use program, of which open space is one of them, all right? And they submit those, they list the acreage, they list the reasons why they want to put it, you know, and it's a tax bulletin that
But then you meet,
But
like you said,
you
you sit
make
down
the
and meet with
decision.
them.
I just,
Solely make the decision.
airplane flying pretty low. Anyway, they submit the application, I review it, I call them up, I ask a few questions, I verify, you know, all the particulars of it, the deed structure, I mean, I go through and I do diligence on it, but there's really no way you can say no. You have no way to say no. If they have a proper application, if the land is in that classification by deed or structure, and they've declared it so, and you verified that it's true, you could say no, and you'll wind up taking them to court. Because they will get a lawyer,
Yeah,
and they will insist. And most of them consider that they're doing the towns a favor by even bothering to put it in a classified program where they're gonna pay some tax.
So even,
Most of them believe
So we
that,
don't have control, you're saying, there's no.
Yeah,
no
no come to the
control at the
select board
local
or the
level.
citizen.
let's just as in the discussion, for the sake right here, let's just say that is true. I would still like them to sit here and explain it, and in which case, maybe we have an opportunity to say, okay, look, we got nothing to do with it, but you think you can scrape up a couple grand and help pay for a new truck? I don't care what it is, but because maybe the laws change
Yeah.
down the line, and everyone's like, oh, we should be having a committee then, and
Well,
what are we doing?
I think, you know, and I'll say it, you know, that gentleman in Augusta, you know, the only tool we have is to shame them. When they come in and they buy up a piece of tree growth land that's been in tree growth for 20 or 30 years, and when that person put that land, $1 million parcel out here in tree growth, like the Blanches and the Henslers and everything, and they let it sit in there for 20 or 30 years. And I don't know how many foresters they hired to work the plan and how much economy they added, but let me finish. But I know this, when Mike and I and some others, we went to Augusta, and every coastal assessor was there in Augusta 11 years ago, along with me, talking about the abuses of the tree growth program to the Legislative Tax Committee. Don't you know, the minute we left, the legislature was being, you know, they have a lobby, a strong lobby in Augusta, and have had. They used to walk, until LePage became governor, they more or less walked the halls of the state planning office and ran the place. And the policies were affected by,
Rachel, there's.
but so, when a parcel like the Hensler property, when that went out of tree growth, they made the situation even worse.
Yeah.
They let the open space folks be able to come in there, buy that land, and the promise and a commitment to the taxpayers that deferred tax dollars would get paid back was wiped out.
Yeah.
And so there's at least 3 or 4 parcels here where I can put my fingers on. See, that's the thing. When they make these claims, it's all platitudes. There's no there. Like I said in Augusta, if you can't measure something, you can't manage it. So I don't want to sit here and hear about all the wonderful benefits of this and trying to claim that because of open space lands, the Summer Keys is a successful program and people are buying houses here because of open space. Bull.
Well, I don't think they know where half of it is, Doug.
Just quickly, Jim's alluded to it, you folks have skipped around as well. The legislators are the people who are gonna come up with the right answer to straighten this out as far as the small communities who are being affected by it. So that's really where the arrows need to be flying to. And these organizations have got more money than God. And they can afford to have lobbyists to run these legislators down day in and day out and make sure a check ends up in the right little file cabinet.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much up to the town's governing body to get in touch with their representatives and say, and LePage brought this up in his State of the State.
Yeah.
So it's well recognized that there's a problem out there. It just, the squeaky wheel is gonna get the grease, and that's pretty much my thought is, it's about the local towns getting together and throwing the arrows where they need to go.
Well, I'd like to know what autonomy we have. If, as Mike said, if you have a percentage of stuff in tree growth and conservation land, is there a point beyond there where it is counterproductive to the town? And could you come in as a town and say, I'm sorry, we've reached our quota. We cannot do
I
anything.
think we're at that point.
I can
Yeah.
tell you what the
Past that
benchmark,
point.
I can
Yeah,
tell you what
but
the
can
benchmark.
we,
There
can
is
we
a
make a
benchmark.
law? I mean,
There is
I
a-
think that's where the legislature is going,
Yeah.
like 20% or
Yeah.
whatever, a
There
percentage.
is a benchmark for any single open space deal.
Mhm.
It was set under law. And that benchmark is any single open space deal equaling or more than 3% of the state's town valuation
Mhm.
are subject to citizen approval at a town meeting.
But we don't have any of those, right?
Well, what are the chances that a single land deal in Lubec is ever gonna reach, what's 3% of $170 million?
Mhm.
0. That'd be $5 million, 5.1 million.
Right, it's not gonna
It
happen.
doesn't work for us.
So
Our
it
deals,
doesn't
our
work for
deals
us.
should be down at, our benchmarks for this town, and I told the legislature this, should be set maybe at the $150,000 mark, where if they wanna buy a piece of land for $150,000,
I think you're right.
then come in here and talk and tell us what's in it for the town.
Mhm.
What are you
Yes,
gonna do for us?
they need citizens' approval.
Yeah. We're gonna be doing a lot of shopping tomorrow, so I don't wanna add to it tonight, but I, 3 points. I like what Renee said, and I have also noticed that Republican governors up the state, the East Coast, have managed to get their coastlines exempted. What's our governor doing about it?
And he's a Republican.
Oh, thank you, yeah. You know, I agree too. Conservation land's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Imagine Bar Harbor if we had Holiday Inns on top of our Cadillac, all right? On the other hand, look what's happening to Bar Harbor. Who wants to go there June, July, and August, September?
It's too
You
proud.
know, they can become very self-destructive.
Yeah.
Finally, it isn't just conservation property, we have the whole problem of nonprofits. And I was just kidding around saying, you know what I'm gonna do? I got a big room in my house. I'm gonna declare my property, St. Andrew's Church with alienated Catholics. Get all the paperwork done, and there goes, my property up the tax list. I think it's a serious thing, not just with conservation, with all nonprofits. And, anybody who leans on my kitchen counter, I'm gonna say, get your elbow off my altar. So I think it is more than conservation, it's the whole thing of nonprofits.
And he's going to be doing the figures for the state of Maine property and also the nonprofits.
In the town.
And the town.
But can
Town property. Maybe not next meeting, but the meeting after.
Yeah, one of the reasons this problem is exacerbated is Lubec, you gotta remember,
Thank you.
only half of Lubec's total area is land. Is land. The only thing that can be developed is land. And Lubec's got 50% of Lubec is water. You know?
So 28% is really 48%.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So in a sense, right now, we have gone to about half the town is in,
Yes.
It's not built.
paying its rent.
And some of the best, most productive land, economically feasible and legally, developable is land.
But can
And
we,
good land.
can we still request that the next time someone's coming up for something that we at least,
I could tell them when I get an application, I would say to
Would only
them,
be courtesy.
before I'm gonna sign this, I'd like for you to call the town administrator.
is that something we can,
We can
motion
request,
to-
you can't make it, but you can ask, right? We can ask them.
I can tell them I'm not gonna sign it till they come in and talk to you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds good.
Make it a policy.
make
And
up.
it's
there you
a
go.
lawyer or
Like that.
something.
Because until
That's illegal, Jim.
but until things change in the state, and to be fair to Maine Heritage, they have been helpful. Now you may say,
They're the only one.
right, so now we can at
I will
least,
echo Carol's thanks to them,
Right.
and they are the only one, and they set a bad precedent for all the rest of the pack who operates and
Right.
does not.
so I think if we can request that they speak to us as a point of procedure, if nothing else until things changes, maybe we can
You
get
know,
them into
that's a
something.
short conversation.
Yeah.
That's a simple
So,
one. We,
well, if it's public access, it should be known to the citizens. We should know what it is to give the benefit to the community.
I told the legislative task committee, I said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah.
And I have asked the land trust way back, I went to the, all of them and asked them, can you provide me some sort of measurements of visit, because they were claiming, what you heard here, all this wonderfulness, benefits. I said, well, can you produce any visitation logs? How many people have gone there? To do what? No, they don't keep any visitation logs.
Well,
When
That
was
one,
the
I don't know where they
last
are.
time, Jim, when was the last time anybody came in and wanted to buy property to turn it into a farm? Do you remember?
Yeah, he's on the planning board.
Kevin Boston.
Kevin Boston, he came here, wanting to make a
And he
farm.
just wants to make a farm,
Yeah, he's got no help.
yeah.
We don't
I
have
think
any
as
money
a
to-
town, we should be more
Stephanie's been.
encouraging to that kind of thing.
Any kind of,
Yeah.
or anyone who comes here with an idea to put in a business, particularly a business that's based upon the use of the land in a productive way, in essentially a non, you know, I mean, it isn't like he's just going out and digging up rocks to haul around or.
We have been helping. Micro Enterprise Grant gave grants through the town to 2 farm,
Yeah,
local farm
That's right.
producers of
We're great.
produce.
Alba and
Chessie.
Chessie.
But I know-
Stephanie's been waiting to talk patiently over there.
Okay.
And it's all about this. I was wondering, is there a way to get it out to every citizen what the mill rate of their taxes is, because of the 28% being off the tax rolls? And if a new one came in, this is the adjusted mill rate because they will not be
I
paying
do it every
taxes.
year in the town report.
But does each person, would it be possible?
You mean
for
like
a
an
person-
individual?
Yeah,
Yeah.
come up and say, this property is going into tax-free and you will be paying $40 more next year.
Now, that would require that I calculate this discreetly and individually for every single parcel of land in town. That's just not possible.
No, I was wondering if there's a way to put it into a computer calculation so it just automatically outputs, because if people see that their taxes are going
You're
up
at the
$40.
university, you figure it out.
I'm
I
not
know.
statistics,
It's been on
that's,
what Stephanie is saying,
Yeah.
instead of doing it individually,
Why not group it?
from the information you people on the board got today, you can say, this is what, to the community as a whole, this is what you're paying for land trust conservative that's been taken off, and you have to make up. Contact your senators, your representatives, that you want this changed, because you can't keep bearing this burden, because the state just raises our rate of what we're entitled to, and we have to make it up.
representatives in the
Denise has a
legislature.
Yeah.
We just get them to know we're tired of it.
Oh,
I have a real basic question. Who are the land trusts buying the land from, or who is donating it to them?
Now they're buying.
we buy it.
That's a good question.
Well, it's on
And the good question is, does the land trust have the mapping of all the tree growth parcels in the state of Maine?
Yeah.
And in particular, they like the tree growth parcels, particularly if they're coastal tree growth parcels up here. They have made deep penetration of that class of land up here. And they in particular like the tree growth parcels because A, the really nice tree growth parcels were large parcels were put in tree growth. And when it came time for the owners to pass on and the trust to get it, and the kids to get it, they've sold those they put them up for sale. Land trust contact them, or even ahead of time. They're in tree growth. Land trust says, you want $1.2 million for this? How about the withdrawal penalty is a couple $100,000 that you'll have to pay town of Lubec. Return the money
If
you
you want
borrowed.
to develop the land.
Right. And that is if you sell it to a private sector party, it's a couple $100,000 withdrawal penalty. If we buy it from you for $1 million, there's no withdrawal penalty because we can spin it into open space. The legislature very conveniently passed a law a few years back that lets them do that.
Tree growth can go to open space with no penalty.
No penalties get forgiven. And here's why it's called a penalty. And people need to understand this. When that law was originally written, it was dubbed a penalty because there is no statute of limitations on penalties, tax code penalties in state of Maine. If I run across a tree growth withdrawal, theoretically, that happened in 1950, or whenever, back, whenever, and those folks never paid a penalty, and I find that out, I can actually send them a bill, retroactive.
Retroactive.
Now, that tree growth penalty represents the rate, and I've done this calculation. What is the penalty, tree growth withdrawal penalty? It is a recoupment of the deferred taxes that the citizens gave that landowner, plus an imputed interest rate of 5% per annum. It represents the return of investment that the neighboring citizens made in that landowner's behalf so they could grow trees for commercial purposes because that's, as Melissa puts it, one of the traditional industries. They could hire loggers, skidders, get guttles in there, harvest the trees, take another 100 years to grow another crop. It takes 100 years.
They have to have a
grow.
plan every 10 years, right?
And they gotta renew the plan every 10 years, and they gotta,
You have to certified forester give you a
Yeah.
plan.
so everybody gets what they want, but the taxpayers never get the $200,000 that they, or $250,000.
So they're preying on tree growth people.
So the benefit is to the person who sold the tree growth property. And that's where the huge loophole is, or the real weak link, is that
It's not a
Tree
loophole
growth.
anymore.
Alright.
It's a law, the legislature,
law.
we went down there and argued about this, and they turned around and made it worse.
Yeah, but that's actually what needs to change, because the tree growth people have had all that benefit, then they benefit once again, and
They get their
tax.
big payday there down the road.
Okay. It's clear.
Tony Morrow's one last thing, what you said about people come to town, so, oh, look at all the conservation property. When I moved here, Eleanor realized I like this town. I didn't say because of the view or all the land and conservation. I like Lubec, I like the people that live here. And, so that's what you said to me, do you want to be co-owner of the house? Because that expressed a desire that I like this town, and this is the kind of town I want to retire to. I only later found out about the problem. I think that's for a lot of people. You come to Lubec, you like what you see, and the other stuff is frustrating.
Well, we'll have to have another
Yes.
discussion. Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. It's almost tea time.
Did we get in anything?
Almost no time.
Well, property?
Without making sure that it was Jim.
What's that?
Just something we can
Oh.
add to do.
I will do that.
We'll make a
Okay.
motion.
Problem.
Okay, we'll make a motion that Jim runs by any request for open spaces. Just out of courtesy, runs by. I'd like to know. Yeah.
I'm just telling, the Board of Assessors
Board of Assessors.
had requested that any applications by, land trust for open space or classified
Run by
land,
the Board of Assessors.
you need to come before the board.
I think that
Present your
is a
full
great idea for us to
presentation.
start, actually.
It's a start.
Second,
To start,
Check the website for,
all in
committee
favor?
updates.
There you go.
Yes,
all in favor.
Recycle Friday.
I was gonna ask you, 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
Okay,
she's ready.
Friday 4, okay.
Okay, that's a yes.
I'm not picking on tree growth or anybody's interest.
Yes.
You know,